Well, Madam Secretary, I don't know how you're doing, but I'm exhausted. If we stay here much longer, you're going to have to take that 3M phone call from the committee room. In fact, your testimony has not only gone on longer than both of your prior testimonies to the House and Senate combined, but I don't know if pleased is the right word, but I'm able to inform you that your testimony now has gone on longer than all the other hearings that we have held combined. But in the interest of full disclosure, we haven't done very much. So we've only had 3 hearings in the last year and a half. But still, that's pretty impressive because some of those hearings we were with multiple witnesses, and you have now outlasted all of them. But I do think you can tell when you're getting to the point of diminishing returns when you have members of the panel who are inventing testimony for you or imagining conversations you're having with your lawyer as well. As for your emails, I feel like channeling Bernie Sanders here tonight. But I'm no Larry David, and I know I wouldn't do it right. So instead, I'll tell you about the other person I agree with on your emails, and it's our chairman, who was asked on Fox News by Chris Wallace what your email use has to do with investigating what happened in Benghazi. And Chairman Gowdy's response was, well, probably not much of anything. As we, I hope wind up tonight, I want to just make one observation about your emails, because I think it's true of the investigation generally. For all the talk about your emails, what's interesting is not a member here, either on the news or in leaked form or whatever, has said anything about the content of your emails that add any insight to what we already know. So it's fascinating to me that for all of this talk, they have not pointed to a single thing in those emails of substance that alters our understanding of what happened in Benghazi, that alters the conclusions of those 7 or 8 other investigations. And what's true of your emails is true of this broader investigation, which is here we are 17 months later, $4.5 million later, and we have nothing new to tell the American people. I have struggled to find something to ask you tonight that hasn't already been asked an infinite number of times, an infinite number of ways. And I'm not going to go through the exercise of searching for a question to be asked again. It's too late for that. But having, I guess, started by pondering what the core theory was of my colleagues, and I do appreciate at least one of them taking a stab at it, I do feel it's my responsibility now as I wind up to tell you what my theory of what's happening is. Speaker Boehner did not want to form this committee. He said so, not to me, but he said so on national TV. He said, what is to be gained by having yet another committee after all the other committees we've had investigate? What is to be gained by this? This is a bad idea. At some point, something changed the Speaker's mind. Now, I'm not in the room when the Speaker makes the decision to reverse course. In reading a profile of our chairman, he wasn't in the room either. He got a call from the Speaker when he was back in his district saying, I've decided to form a committee. How would you like to be the chairman? I'll bet Mr. Chairman wishes he never got that call. So who was in the room? Well, Kevin McCarthy was in the room. There was nobody better situated to know why this committee was formed or why the Speaker changed his mind than the Speaker's number 2, Kevin McCarthy. So with all due respect to our chairman who says, shut up, other members, you don't know what you're talking about, I'd have to say, actually, the one person who does know what he's talking about was Kevin McCarthy. So that's why I think we're here. And it would be one thing if it was that common in isolation. It'd be another if we didn't have one of their own team, a GOP investigator who's going to vote for whoever the Republican nominee is. He tells us proudly, saying the same thing. But it's the way we've conducted ourselves that is the most compelling evidence that that's the only object here. I mean, I think we've seen amply tonight in the questions. There's very little interest in what actually happened. There's not much interest in how we can prevent it in the future, but there's a lot of interest in trying to score points against you tonight. Everybody, I think, on this side of the podium is hoping they're the one that does the gotcha that makes the news. Well, it's terrible abuse of our responsibility and our power, and I think we'll rue the day that we did this. I have no questions, Madam Secretary, and I appreciate your patience, and I yield back. I'd be happy to yield to my colleague, Mr. Cummings.
Madam Secretary, I want to associate myself with the words of my colleague, but I want to go back to the ARB. And my 20 years Oversight Committee, one of the things that I've tried to do is try to make sure that I protect the reputations of the people who come before our committee, be they Republican witnesses, be they Democrat or independent. The reason being that I realize that there's life after the hearing. And so often, Madam Secretary, what happens is people come before these hearings, the families watching, colleagues watching, they are torn apart, and then in many instances, things are corrected later on. Instead of it appearing on the front page of the newspaper, it's on page 33 at the bottom in a little paragraph. And you were talking a little bit earlier about the night of the tragedy. And I've done a lot of depositions in my life as a lawyer. But I can tell you, and I think you should be very proud of this, when I listened to Cheryl Mills, to Mr. Sullivan, and Ms. Avedon, when they talked about this night and what you did that night in their transcribed interviews, all of them were basically brought to tears. And I remember sitting there saying to myself, you know, if you can create a culture in an organization where people, in talking about their boss and how she reacted and what she felt, that would bring them to tears, it says a lot. And I realize that you've gone through a lot, but the fact still remains that, and it bothers me when I hear people even imply that you didn't care about your people. That's not right. And then I sit here and I watch you. And I saw how you kind of struggled when you were talking about that night. And I just, for one, want to thank you, and I appreciate what you've done. It has not been easy. You're right. It's easy to sit up here under these lights and Monday morning quarterbacking about what could have been, what should have done. You have laid it out. I think you have said this has not been done perfectly. You wish you could do it another way. And then the statement that you made a few minutes ago when you said, you know, I have given more thought to this than all of you combined. So I don't know what we want from you. Do we want to badge you over and over again until you get tired, until we do get the gotcha moment that he's talking about? We're better than that. We are so much better. We're a better country. And we're better than using taxpayer dollars to try to destroy a campaign. That's not what America is all about. So you can comment if you like. I just had to get that off my chest. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Congressman. I came here because I said I would. And I've done everything I know to do, as have the people with whom I worked, to try to answer your questions. I cannot do any more than that. The answers have changed not at all since I appeared 2 years ago before the House and the Senate. And I recognize that there are many currents at work in this committee, but I can only hope that the statesmanship overcomes the partisanship. At some point, we have to do this. It is deeply unfortunate that something as serious as what happened in Benghazi could ever be used for partisan political purposes. And I'm hoping that we can move forward together. We can start working together. We can start listening to each other. And I appreciate greatly what you said, Ranking Member Cummings.
Thank you very much.